Hi guys, welcome to the inaugural edition of Lessons with Lizzy with one and only Elizabeth Betts.
Hi.
All right, so this is my first YouTube stream, and I hope you guys can see us and hear us. Anyway, welcome to the stream. And Lizzy has a little problem for me.
Yes, the first problem is still the easiest to come. We will have a couple of problems today.
Okay, so I'm
You're white.
white. Okay. All right, hold on just a second. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, all right. So let's see here. We are down. We're down a rook. We have an extra pawn for it.
We are not down a rook, actually, Nicola.
No, I'm sorry, we're not down a rook, but we're up a pawn. But we have a problem that we have. All right, so our problem is that we have this. All right. Hey, Merry Christmas, Ali Gobashi. Thank you for joining. So, hey, Gebs, good to see you. Thank you for joining the stream. This is the first stream, so we're still having some technical amusement, but welcome to joining us. Hey, Trevor, it's very good to see you. Thank you for being here. Okay, so I don't see any meaningful checks, Lizzy. I see several captures. Capture number one is to capture on d1. That's the strongest piece. The problem with capturing on d1 is that after we capture on d1, capture on e3.
Yes.
And then we can't go to f1 because of queen g1 mate or something close to it.
Well, not mate, but let's say after rook takes d1, bishop takes e3, queen g2 check, and queen takes a2. I'm afraid you have nothing better than perpetual check.
No, so that's not very appealing. So we can capture the bishop on c5. If we capture the bishop on c5, then what happens? Then we are up a pawn, and I don't see any mating direct threats for black. We're up a bishop and a pawn.
Well, after bishop takes c5, I take on h1, and then
I take on h1, and I don't have much of a counterplay. Okay, so we need to find. Looks like we need to find a Zwischenstück here that works. Okay. Okay. Let me think. So none of the captures work. Or at least not immediately obvious. Nope. Okay. Yeah, not my best chess morning, I would say today. But let's see.
Maybe you should make a list of candidate moves first
Yeah,
before you...
agreed. Okay, so let's start here by I can so I can play. None of the captures seem to work.
Yep.
So let's look at the frets. Fret number 1 is to play Queen H5.
Yes.
And Queen H5, then it's the sequence along the lines of Bishop E3, King E2, discover check. I have King D1. I have capture on E8. So that's a very strong candidate move, is Queen H5, because it has a fret.
And what did you miss?
The problem with Queen H5 is that you can take on E3 with a rook, and then I don't have much.
Well, I would say that it's not even the biggest problem, I'm afraid.
I know, but there are plenty. Hey,
Yeah.
Johnny Zeta, thank you for joining the stream. It's very good to see you guys. Thank you.
But you're right, rook takes e3 is also an easy solution, but just for the records, what is very nice here, that black has a very nice move here, which can easily be missed.
Nice move. Queen
It's
G.
a nice move.
We're looking at what? Queen G2 is not the move.
No, something else which is nice, which you can easily miss in your calculation and which would decide the game.
Yeah, which I already missed. Okay.
What is the move here? I mean, one candidate is Queen G2. What is the other candidates when we always go by the rule?
Well, checks, right?
Yes. And which check here can be very upsetting.
All right, there is a Queen G2 check, and then there is, well, Rook D2.
Yes, and Rook D2 will just make you resign, I'm afraid.
Rook D2 is a mate very quickly. Yeah, okay, fair enough. So that doesn't. So forget about Queen H5. Okay. I'm not very efficient here. What is the other option?
Have you really checked out all the checks you have in this position, Nicola? Because this exercise is actually not difficult, but it's difficult that you easily will dismiss candidate moves just because of your intuition misguiding you.
Yeah, all right. So let's focus on checks. Do I have a check on H7, which doesn't appear to be meaningful?
Yep.
I have a check on H8. Huh, interesting. Which is actually quite interesting.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Yep. I see it. So it's Rook H8 is the solution.
Yes. So okay. In case of, let's say, King takes H8.
Then I have Queen H5.
King G8. Queen takes E8. King H7. How would you continue here?
Okay, let me think for a second. So, Rook H8. Are we doing Queen H8, King H8, right?
We'll lead to the same position, actually. Because after queen h8, queen g6, queen g7, queen takes e8, king h7, we have the same position.
Okay. Very good.
So the question is what to do after queen takes e8, check, king h7. How to continue here?
All right, very nice. So I have a couple of checks. I have a check on h5.
Yes, I will play king g8.
And we are repeating the position. I can take on c5.
Then you will be mate with queen g1 check and queen e1. I'm afraid.
Yeah, and that which doesn't work. If I... Hey, Ami Agrawal, thank you. It's very good to see you guys here. Welcome to the stream. All right. Okay. So what else do we have? I can't take on c5. My queen is on e8. I only have a check on h5. I can't take on c5, and I don't have any other capture that's meaningful of a capture. Actually, I don't have any capture. So what do I?
You have to find new candidate moves.
Okay. It's a nice sequence, actually. All right. So rook h. I'm not sure I'm gaining anything with queen h5.
Well, it's not true actually, because
I can do queen h5 and then queen g4. And then exchange the queens, and I have a winning endgame.
Well, let me see.
But that's not what you want me to do.
Wait a second. I'm not sure that you will be able to exchange. Well, the thing is, like, if I take on g4 and then I play d4 with the idea of d3, I will get a lot of counterplay, which is not winning maybe at all, because you have to play something after d4, then d3 is coming maybe with a check. Queen g4, can I play something else after queen g4? I mean, there's something more forcing, which is winning for white. But you are right, after queen g4, you have also advantage for white, that's true.
Okay, but that's not the point here, so...
That's one solution, however, which I would count.
Fair enough. You're very generous.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Anit. Welcome to the stream. It's good to see you. Thank you, my friend. Okay, so after queen e8, king h7. All right, so I can play. We said that rook g4 is an option, and we said the capture on c5 is that queen h5 and queen g4 is an option. Capturing on c5 results in a mate.
Yes.
Right. Let's see, what else do we have here? What am I missing? I don't have any more checks.
Nope, but you have a kind of nice defending move, because, okay, the threat of black is queen g1 check, right?
Yep.
So just do something prophylactical.
Yeah. I can actually... Can I play king e2?
Yes, that's actually the easiest.
That's the solution, right?
Yes, because after king e2, bishop takes e3, you can take on d1. And after queen g1 check, you have to be a bit careful where you go and what you think where you go.
After After
King,
after king e2, right?
yes, king e2. Then bishop takes e3. King takes d1. Queen g1 check.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. Well, I have. I can't go to. If I can go to e2 where it's mate in one.
No, it's not mate in one after e2. We have still a rook on a2.
Well, if I no, meaning if I get my king to e2
Yes,
after queen g1, then queen e1 is mate.
No, there's a bishop on e3. And you captured the rook on d1 already.
Oh, already. Okay, then we're looking at different position. Sorry. So basically the sequence is bishop e3, king d1.
Yes, king takes d1.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha. And then queen g1.
Yes, and now the question is where to go with the king not to run into a mate, and you have only two options, which is c2 or e2.
If I go to c2, then you have queen c1.
Yes, I have queen. Maybe it's actually the same, I can see, because
I don't see
it will not make a huge difference.
Hmm.
Just you have to calculate more checks, let's say. That's why e2 is easier.
Yeah, I would probably go to e2, and then after queen f2.
Yes, you go to d3.
d3, and
He takes on a2.
yeah, and I can give a, let's see, my queen is still on e8.
Well, it could also be on h5. That's up to you, how you want to be there.
If it's on e8 and I need to capture this bishop on e3,
Then I can capture.
We don't want to capture this. I don't want to lose. If I'm on h5, I have a check. I have a check on d5. Then
Yes,
that's the difference. And then the b3 is defended, and I have two extra pawns. Okay.
Yes, that's the solution here.
So that's the sequence. Okay.
Yes, it's 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's rook h8. Let's say it doesn't matter. It's the same sequence. Queen h5 check, king g8, king e2. It's important to z. Bishop takes e3, king takes d1, queen g1 check, queen f2 check, and here very important, queen takes d5, and you win.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
Easy warm up, right?
Well, this was a kind of, I mean, you will see that this is an easy warm up.
Yeah, because what follows is much more difficult. All right, thanks.
Today we will have exercises which are important about really candidate moves and not to dismiss them.
Okay.
Why to move?
Thanks, Anit. Appreciate that. All right. Okay. White to move. Equal material. Two checks. One meaning there's a capture on h6. And none other captures appear to be meaningful. I'm not seeing any. This is not about pawn challenges?
Nope. Just, I mean, as a small hint, really try to consider all candidate moves given in this position.
Yeah. Yep. All right. We have a loose piece on f5. White have black has a loose piece of a8, which we can't take advantage of. We have a loose piece on c7, which we also cannot take advantage of.
Wouldn't be too sure about that, but yes.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So we have a potentially overloaded rook on e6. I don't see a follow-up after knight h6, king g7.
Yes, you don't get anything here for white. That is true.
All right, so the highest value piece is that queen on c7, which I can threaten playing bishop d6. Actually, there is a pawn challenge on a4, which is somewhat interesting, but I don't think that's the solution to this problem. Yes, Anit, you can write moves in chat, of course. All right. Okay. So there is a nice sequence. I can play knight d4.
Rook e8.
And then I can go pawn grabbing and grab the pawn on b5.
Okay, what will be Black's answer?
Now the queen is under attack. Black will play queen b6.
Yes.
And then I can, what can I do? I have potential fork of two pieces. I can play. All right, so let's see here. What threats can I make in this position? I still don't have a check. Interesting. All right, so I can play knight d6, but then that's not a very appealing sequence.
Because of queen takes b4, yes.
Yeah, and I can capture the rook on e8, but then I have that's a better sequence for black. All right, I am pretty sure that playing against this overloaded rook is the way to go. So, and that's actually attack of the highest value target. So knight d4, rook e8. Okay. Knight b5 is still appealing, but how do we defend the knight? We can't.
Well,
or can we?
Try to really always search for all candidates in this position.
Okay. All right. So, guys, here's the sequence: knight d4, rook e8, knight b5,
and queen b6.
Queen b6. That's a reasonable sequence. So queen is now outside of the threat. It's Almas's stuff is attacking the knight, and bishop is unfortunately one loose piece we have. We really cannot take advantage of the knight on e5. Knight on f6 is also undefended.
Very good.
So, how do we take advantage of that fact? Bishop on c3.
There's still a knight on e5, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that doesn't work. I can play f4 afterwards, but that's too much.
So let's actually like ask yourself something else. If black was to move, what is black's threat after queen b6?
Queen b5?
Yes, and what other threat could be instead of queen takes b5?
It's queen b4.
Well, I mean like queen b4.
Direct threat, yeah, okay.
The current threat after queen b6 is queen takes b5, and hypothetically speaking, also c takes b5.
Yes.
So let's check out both options if we make a break and do nothing. Which of these two options capturing on b5 is actually harmful for you?
Good question. You're saying that, okay. All right. Queen b5?
Queen b5 is a harmful one because c takes b5 is not harmful at all. Why?
And that's the $64 question. I don't see it.
It's about what you mentioned before. What are the loose pieces, the unstable pieces in black's position?
It's the knight on f6.
So?
And then it would, if it takes cb5, the knight on e5 is undefended.
No, the knight on d5 is defended with a rook on e8, but the knight on f6 is not defended, but it can be taken. How?
If it takes cb5?
What move?
Yeah, we have rook d6.
So that means the only threat is queen takes b5.
Yeah.
So how to prevent that? What candidate move do you have against queen takes b5?
Okay, I can defend the knight. I can play even a4.
Yes, and now let's check the move a4. If black doesn't take now on b5, what is white's threat?
White's threat is with the knight on b5. Well, the queen is under attack, but you're talking about queen b6. Okay, fair enough.
I speak about queen b6 and a4.
Yeah.
Now, if, for example, like black decides not to capture on b5, what is the problem? Why actually black is forced to capture on b5? What could be white's next move if he doesn't capture on b5?
I can play bishop c5.
Exactly. Which means that actually...
And queen is actually trapped or very close to it. Actually, queen can go to a6, but then it's knight c7, and it's pretty bad. Okay, fair enough. So that is the sequence.
Well, it's not over yet, Nicola.
It's okay.
It's not that easy. Okay, basically, like in this position after a4, black is forced to capture on b5 because if, for example, like knight fd7 to prevent bishop c5, which is also an option, then actually like you have plenty of solutions, but the easiest solution is rook d6, not allowing you to capture on b5 at all.
Yep. That's
And
an
that's all.
alternative pin. Okay.
Yes. So that's why c takes b5 has to be played. After c takes b5, the next move is obviously rook d6.
D6.
And now what is black's answer?
Okay. So queen needs to move somewhere.
Not necessarily.
I mean, you can play knight c6, but then, actually, hold on.
Uh-huh. It's not over yet.
Okay. Rook d6, knight c6, bishop c5.
Yes. So now where
And
does...
then bishop, rook f6.
Well, it's not over yet. Where does the queen go after bishop c5 to close some tactical ideas?
Okay. All right. After bishop c5. All right, so the sequence we're talking about, just to make sure I'm fully understand, is knight d4, rook e8, knight b5, queen b6, a4, cb5, rook d6, knight c6, bishop c5.
Yep.
Okay, fair enough. So queen can go to c7.
Yes. To be in the position with the queen.
To be annoying and take advantage that the queen on c2 is undefended as well.
Yes.
And
So
that's actually probably the only move. I mean, it's up. Yeah. Okay. So okay. And the threat here is b6, but yeah, okay. All right, but then I can simply play, if I take on f6 immediately.
yes, you take on f6. What is the answer?
The answer, if black plays b6.
Black plays b6.
Or rook e5.
Well, what are the tactical moves after rook takes f6, taking into the account that the queen on c2 is not defended?
Okay. Well, technically, if the knight on c6 moves, then the bishop is pinned, right?
So where does the knight move to make it interesting?
Knight b4.
Yes, and now after knight b4, how you will react?
Okay. All right, so in that position, I don't have any checks.
Yes, but what you can do to actively trying to defend, okay, not actively, but also looking at the weaknesses and unstable facts in black's position.
All right, so I have a rook on f6.
Yes.
I cannot sacrifice on g6, tempting as it is. Or can I? Okay. I can't take on b4. The queen is pinned.
Nope. But, I mean, the queen threats to take on c5. When the queen is on c5, what vulnerable issues are in black's position, hypothetically speaking? Weaknesses which can be attacked. I mean, there's a cheese.
If the queen, yeah, I know what you want me to play. You want me to play queen b3 and target f7.
Yes, so after queen b3, queen takes 5 is forced.
She takes on c5?
Yes, I mean, otherwise, I mean, I take on b4 and win a piece. Right?
But aren't you mated like almost immediately?
Not mated, but okay, I take on f7, king h8.
Okay, and I have... Okay, so I have a queen on f7 and rook on g6.
Yes, rook takes g6 you can play now.
I can take rook g6.
Queen f8.
Okay. And I don't want to calculate the material, but...
Yes, but this is actually here useful to do that. I mean, like what you can capture after queen f8, what item is still available to capture?
I can probably... Okay, rook g6, this... So that actually defends mate. Well, I have a knight on b4 that I can... That's undefended. But I'm up in exchange, right, Lizzy?
Yes, you are not up in exchange. You are like actually down a piece.
Don't I have... Oh yeah, the rook is on e8, sorry. True. Okay, fair enough. So I need to find a way from this position to capture on b4.
Yeah. B4 you cannot because your queen is on f7.
Okay, the rook is on e8 and rook is on a8. That's defended. Knight, the queen is on f8.
Yes, and you don't want to exchange the queens with an open black's king.
No. So what is this? What is the mating sequence here? Let me see. Alright, so I took an f7, rook g6, queen f8. I don't have a check. I have a check on f6, which means exchanging queens, which I don't want to do. I have a check on h6, which, again, I don't want to do.
Yes, but what you can capture just for the material point of view, because for now we have like 3 pawns against the knight. And just to look at the material issue here actually makes sense because, okay, he has a piece, but we have already 3 pawns and we can grab another pawn.
Yeah, we have to grab the pawn on b7, right?
Yes, and we still have huge advantage actually because, okay, the king is weak. And actually this is more than enough to understand that white is winning.
No, I was hoping for something better. I hear you. Okay. All right, this is actually a very nice sequence.
Yes, okay, the difficulty is that unfortunately after queen b6 most players will cut the calculation and then they will lose the chance forever.
Okay.
Because here to see a4 to understand that only like queen takes b5 is a real threat is not easy in a way to think this way. And that's the problem about this exercise that makes it so hard. Also, like for very good players, it will not be easy to find a move like a4.
Yeah, bishops, there are so many Zwischenzugs in this position. It's, yeah, okay.
And here finally this, and here it's enough just to understand, okay, I have 4 pawns. I have a very safe king, you have a bad king, and this is like huge advantage for black.
And that pawn on b5 is probably a little bit in trouble.
okay, he can play any rook to b8, but then I always have maybe attacks against the h6 pawn too. So it's not like that you can really like improve the position. After rook b8, probably like queen c7 with some ideas of queen c3 check. So you don't have so much time even to take care of any pawns yourself.
Okay.
Yep, but let me just actually for the curiosities check. No, it's queen e4 actually is a good move. And if you take on a4, let's say, then I have rook d1. And okay, I will just bring my other rook to the attack. And that's more than enough.
Yeah, this the knight has nowhere to go.
Yeah. So now actually you will get the real warm-up.
Okay. This was an easy warm-up, right? Okay.
Well, this was not the easy warm-up, but you will get something which is more entertaining, let's say.
Okay.
It was between Kramnik and Mamedyarov, and Mamedyarov missed his chance. So your job is not to miss any chances.
So in other words, my job is to find what 2750 plus Grandmaster missed. Okay, thank you. That's a compliment, actually. All right.
So that's your job for now. Yes, it's black to move.
Black to move. So I'm black. Okay.
You are black now, and you're Mamedyarov in Hansimansis 6 years ago.
Okay. All right. And yeah, I'm not familiar with this position. Who is white, just for pen? Kramnik. Okay.
Yeah. And actually, it's a kind of really messy game, which ended in favor for Kramnik, but Kramnik was lucky.
Okay.
And your job is to basically play better than Mamedyarov in this sequence.
Okay. All right. Obviously, we can eliminate pawn challenges from this position.
Well, it's not about pawn challenges.
I'm joking.
Yeah. But you understand, if you don't mate or like do something about white's king, you have a problem with d7 and c7.
Yeah. All right. So I can stop d7. I can't stop c7, can I? No.
No.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. So I have. Bless you.
Thank you.
I have a check on f3. I have a check on c2. If I give a check on f3, I'm losing a knight. I have a discover check on e5. That doesn't give me anything. I can resign.
Yes. So we can
eliminate that.
Yeah.
If I don't give a check, or I don't have a mate threat direct sequence, c8 promotes, which I'm not sure I can even stop.
Yes, also like there's rook f8 checks ideas.
Yeah. And then I'll have two queens to deal with. All right. On the plus side, after rook c2, king g1 loses on the spot.
Yes.
So it's
Let's
king
start.
h1.
Start with, yes.
And I have a check on g2. Am I winning or am I drawing?
Well, actually, black is, if black plays correct, at the end you will be winning.
Okay. All right, so rook c2 is an obvious first move. I think that's the only candidate move.
Yes.
We have king h1 and we have king g3.
Yes.
If we play king... Ooh, okay. If we... All right, let me look at king g3 for a second. King g3, rook g2. King h4. Because if you play on f4, I'm going to give you a check on e6 and I'm going to capture the pawn on c7, and I'm actually in decent shape.
That's true. Even so, also this is another story. But let's do actually step by step. Let's first find out what to do after king h1.
Okay, very good. After king h1, I can basically play knight f3, and then you have rook f8.
Yes, knight f3 is one big candidate. And rook f8 would be played. Then the next move.
Okay. I can play king g7.
Well, but then
no, if I do that, then you're gonna capture an f3 and I'm dead. So I basically, after rook f8, I have to take. Do I?
Well, not true. Because if you take, then there is queen promotion, and I think there will be some checks, and you will lose some material, like with queen b5 check or something, and then I have still a c7 trump card left.
Yeah, I don't see how knight f3 works after rook f8, to be very frank with you.
Well, okay, the next move of white is rook takes f3, only move. Otherwise, he's basically just where you go with your king now. When the only danger is d7 and c7 pawn.
Oh, so that's the sequence?
That's you go where with the king after rook f8 check.
Okay, I can... go to e6.
Of course. And now he has to take on f3 because he can give...
Otherwise it's mated, and otherwise unless he... the sequence of promoting d8 knight with a check, king d7, and I'm actually fine. Okay. Yeah, all right. I see that. All right, so so king h1, knight f3, rook f8, king e6.
Yes.
Okay. And then rook f3, right?
Rook f3. Okay, also we have to know what to do after rook e8 check. But let's start with rook takes f3. Why rook takes f3 is just winning for black?
Because I have king d7.
But okay, I start with what move? I will not give you h3 bishop voluntary, right?
I can do before I take on e6, I'm gonna do bishop g2.
And then you take
on d7, I'm winning. Yeah, that's
so that's enough. Why rook e8 check has to be played.
Okay. Now what?
Well, I mean, your best chance is, of course, to mate.
Yeah. But I need to figure out where to put the king of mine. All right. Okay.
I mean, you can either repeat moves or you try to go towards white's king in order to create a mating threat, even if he sacrifices his rook against f3.
Yeah. Okay, so after rook e8, if I go to if I go d file, it's promotion with check.
Yes, so you cannot.
I can, if I play king f6, we are back to playing. Then there's rook f8.
There's d8 check, which is, I think, a bit worse.
That's d8, which is worse, yes. So I can only play, basically, I can repeat the move, so I can play king f5.
Yes, so let's say king f5, rook f8 check. And now king g4, let's say.
No, yes, I can do king g4.
So if rook takes f3 here,
I can take with the king, right?
yes, and if
yeah, that's the sequence. Darn.
wait, it's not that yet done. I mean, if you take with the king, I will give queen promotion. I mean, like, what candidate moves you have after rook takes f3?
With my king on g4?
Yes.
I can give you a check on g2 first.
Maybe this is more clever.
That's actually, yes, and then I can take on f3 afterwards.
Yes, so when you play rook takes f3, bishop g2 check, king g1, and now you take how with what piece you take on f3?
With the king, and there is a mating sequence on h1.
Yes, and that's very important. So you take with the king on f3. There's this mating sequence on h1, and he cannot escape. Very good. So that means that we solved the situation with king h1.
Yeah, we did. Now let's look at king g3.
Yes.
All right. Just out of curiosity, what did Mamedjarov play?
No, I mean, like rook c2 he still found. He got lost after king h4.
Ah, okay.
At some point he got lost. He was quite good until one moment. But I will tell you the moment when you have to improve. So let's go for king g3, rook g2 check, and king f4 to start with.
Okay, f4 is... isn't that knight e6?
King f3.
And I can I...
Yes, you have to take on...
I can take on c7, right?
Yes, rook f8 check. I mean, look at the material, of course. This is always never to forget that how much you get for the queen.
Well, I'm gonna... I can get the rook.
Yes, and after queen d8 check promotion, what do you play?
I can play knight e8.
Yes, and I will play queen h4. And now you have to find one more key move in order to understand that you are winning here.
So, all right, so my pieces are scattered all over the place. I have a queen on, I have a knight on e8, king is on f8, bishop is on h3, rook is on c3.
Rook is on g2,
g2.
And the king is on f3.
and you're threatening. Okay, can I just play knight e6?
Knight d6, I can take on h3. The bishop is hanging.
Don't I have a knight g5 check?
The king is on f3. And after the knight on e8 can go to d6, but it cannot give a check on g5.
It's nice, yeah. It's a super powerful knight.
Yes.
No, but I was actually hoping to go to e6.
But you cannot in one move. After you have the knight on e8, you need 2 moves, and currently the bishop on h3 is.
Yeah. Okay. No, I hear you. Sorry. All right. So I have. All right, so queen h4, rook is on
g2. And king is on f3.
And king is on f3, right? Okay. So, and my king is on f8.
Yes.
All right,
And then
so I can play, is it rook a2 or rook c2?
yes, it's fine. It's both working. Probably rook c2 makes more sense because you protect the pawn on c4.
Yeah, I just need to go to a light square so there is no forks, diagonal forks.
Yes, very good.
And
So
yeah,
that's why,
okay.
and that's winning.
Yeah, okay.
So we dismissed now king f4.
Okay, now king h4.
We get to the interesting part.
Okay.
King h4. And here Mamadjara still found the strongest move before he went wrong.
Okay. Oh, yes, Anit, exactly. Oh, Anit actually posted the right move in chat. Thank you. So let me think here. All right, so rook c2, king g3, rook g2, king h4. We have a check on g4.
Yes, but then after king h5, you are out of checks.
All right. And I can play. That king is almost mated. I can play knight f3.
Knight f3, okay. I will play rook f8 check.
Okay. And I cannot take. Yeah, all right. All right, so we have a mating threat on f3.
Yes, we have a mating. You mean like after knight f3?
Yes.
After knight f3, you have a mating threat on g5 and h4, but I will play rook f8 check.
Yeah.
And the queen on d8 will, by the way, guard h4 and g5 square, which is also no good news.
Yes.
So you have to find another mating threat instead of knight f3 in this position. Or maybe even instead of rook g4 check.
Okay. There is a mating. Okay. All right.
I mean, you see the pattern of knight f3 check and some mate on c5. Currently in the position after rook g2 check, king h4, this doesn't work as the bishop on h3 is hanging. So what does it tell you?
That tells me
that sometimes the threat is stronger than the execution.
yeah. All right. So, do we have time for this? All right. Hold on, I'm missing something obvious here. Okay, so instead of rook g4,
Yep.
we can move the bishop.
Yes.
Where?
That's a very good question.
Okay.
There's only one square available because all the other squares will have a huge drawback.
All right, so if I play on f1, there is a rook f8 and I can't follow the sequence.
I mean, you cannot even move rook bishop f1 because you have a rook on g2.
Yeah. Oh, duh. Okay. If a rook g2 is hanging, the rook g4 is hanging, rook f5 fails to rook f8, so I can play
Bishop
e6.
Yeah, bishop e6. That is the strongest move in this position. And the threat is simply knight f3 check. And then either rook h2 or rook g5 mate.
Yes.
After
Wow.
bishop e6, what is white's only move?
Rook f8 again.
And this was the moment after rook f8 when Mamedyarov failed.
I don't blame him.
Okay, the problem is like that if you have this kind of situation in the game, you will be totally tensed and the adrenaline will rush through your blood. And this, of course, to keep your nerves calm in such a position, not sure even how much time they had left, is, of course, not easy. Now
so
after
basically the sequence is I end up hiding the king on rook f8, king g7, rook g8, king h6, rook g.
Well, you have two candidate moves after rook f8. You have you have king takes f8, you have king g6, and you have king g7. But which of these moves is the most tempting one? Also take into account wherever you move king. After queen d8 promotion, it should be mated. Otherwise, it's very bad news.
Agreed. All right, so rook f8, king capture on f8 is not appealing because it promotes with check.
Yes, that's what happened in the game, but that was how Mamedyarov failed, and he failed in an easy way, so that's why it's not difficult to improve here.
All right. What's the difference between king g7 and king g6?
That's what you have to answer yourself when it comes to d8 promotion, and the answer is very simple, actually.
Yeah, I need that. I need to stop. I need to stop king g5. So I need to play king g6.
Yes, because then after d8 promotion,
Yep. I see it now. Okay.
So after king g6, I will play rook g8 check.
And I'm gonna go to h6.
Yes, but it's not over yet. Now the only move not to be made is rook takes g5.
Isn't
After king
rook
h6.
h3 mate?
The rook is on g2.
Ah, duh. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so after king h6, rook g5. King is on h4.
Yes.
And bishop is on e6.
Yep.
I can just take on d7, right?
Well, then I take on g2.
Oh, yes, of course. Okay. But hold on. Isn't, oh yeah, take with the rook, sorry. Okay. So king is on h4. I mean, I can give you I can't give you a check on g4. What am I talking about?
No, but where you can give a check.
No. But I can give a check on h2.
Yes, and after
that's the sequence I want to capture on d7 in the next move and
both rooks are hanging, and that's how you basically
win the
will
game.
win the game. Yeah. That was the real warm-up. So I will show the sequences for everybody, right? Because
Yes,
it's
please.
one. So rook c2 check. We know that this doesn't work because it's made on the spot on g2. So after king h1, we said we have knight f3 with the mating idea of rook h2. Here the only move was rook f8 check, and here important is to keep a track on that pawn.
Yeah.
So king e6 has to be played. If you take here now on f3, then after check on g2
king
and king
d7,
we are winning. So the only chance is to keep on giving checks, but the problem is, okay, here we only discuss rook takes f3, but even if you give these checks, I will simply move to g3, and then I have bishop g. Okay, maybe not to g3. I have to be a bit careful here, because if I move to g3, then you have the check on f3. So here bishop f5 would be the easy one. So for this reason, we said they would take on f3, but here it's important not to play king takes f3, as we don't have a mating threat, as the king can go to h2 after the check on g2. We should immediately give the check, because if you go king h2, we have a check. If you go king g1, we can capture, and we have the mating idea. So that was the issue with king h1. That's why king g3 had to be played, rook g2 check, and here the most resistance move is king h4. If king f4, then we have the check here, and we have knight takes c7, and all we need to know is that in this position after queen h4, rook c2 is a game changer, and we are winning as well because we have plenty of material against the queen. That means only move here is king h4, and here it was important to find bishop e6, the only winning move. Bishop f5 has a drawback that now I can capture on f5, and I'm losing my mating threats. So that's why bishop e6 is the game changer, and after rook f8 check, king g6, because if you play king g7, then I can promote on d8, and you don't have mating ideas as the queen guards g5 and g5 and h4 mate. Actually, not, the king shouldn't go here. It's rook takes f3 here, actually. Yeah. So that's why king g6 had to be played, and here rook g8 check, king h6, rook takes g5, and rook h2, and here you take on d7. So yes, that was a kind of really intense fight, which eventually went in Kramnik's favor because Mamedyarov lost the nerves. And he lost the nerves actually in the sequence. He took on f8, and then, okay, he allowed promotion, and later on lost the game. hard to say why he dismissed king g6. I think he maybe dismissed king g6 because he saw rook g5, g8 check, and he stopped here.
Yeah.
Probably this is the reason, as he saw that g5 is captured and he didn't think further. Could be, but maybe also a little time. Okay, that was the warm-up of today. Let's go into positional chess.
Okay.
And let's start with something we didn't finish last time. 1 second. I have to copy the plan. And here you are white and you have to make a decision on how to play on.
Okay. What is this? Some interesting Marazzi bind Sicilian with fianchetto?
This was for sure kind of Sicilian, probably a Scheveningen with g3, bishop g2, and then this kind of fianchetto setup for black. No, it could also have been English, actually, from the English lines, because sometimes this structure as well.
Okay. All right, so I'm actually reasonably familiar with these positions. So, okay. Okay, so material is equal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any checks. I have a capture on a5, which may or may not make sense. Doesn't look very appealing, to be frank. On the other hand, black, I have space advantage.
Yes, you have space advantage for white, but okay, you have to be very careful with the squares.
Yes. I have a loose pawn on e4.
Mm-hmm.
I have an undefended pawn on b4.
Yep, and you have to basically decide a kind of reaction on the queen side, which is obvious.
Yeah. If this is a bullet game, I'm probably playing b5 and bishop a3.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually is not the worst of sequences.
No, but probably I will react with knight d7 here. And then try to place my knight to c5 and have, well, a stable position more or less on the black squares.
Yes. All right, candidate moves. If bishop was on e7, e5 would look appealing for a few seconds.
Yep.
But it's not.
Nope.
I can reinforce the pawn on b4 by playing bishop a3.
Mm-hmm.
I can reinforce the pawn on e4 by playing rook e1.
Yes, but okay, what is actually significant? I mean, what is like a big issue about this position? If you compare the position, evaluate it, what is a big plus of white here in this position?
space and that weak pawn on potentially weak pawn on d6.
Well, actually, I would say this is, of course, a plus, but this is not the biggest issue here in this position.
That black king hasn't castled yet?
Yes. So basically, as a kind of rule, like before, I mean, whenever there's a king in the center and the king hasn't castled, and the position gives some kind of dynamic options, and here it's clear there must be some dynamic options because you have a lot of connection points like e5, c5, and so on.
Yeah.
Then, of course, if I manage to keep my opponent busy,
Yep.
preventing him from castling, I can develop a huge initiative.
Yep. So 2 pawn challenges with that in mind come to play. One is to play e5. Another is to play c5.
Yes, and okay, if you compare the challenges of c5 and e5, which of the challenges gives you a clear plus in terms of squares?
I have an outpost for knight on c4 if I play c5.
And that's of course very important because that might be a game changer once the knight gets to c4, because okay, b6 is hanging, d6 is hanging, and okay, he's very busy, and suddenly you have a very strong knight to jump in. So for this reason here, the strongest move in the position, and actually like you can even choose the way of executing it, is of course to play either c5 or b5 and c5, which is more or less the same outcome with some small differences, but both ways are very appealing. In the game, b5 was played, bishop b7 and c5. Now, okay, the first question is, in case of, let's say, d takes c5, we can already see that we receive a winning position after
Knight c4.
Yeah, knight c4, exactly. And here after knight c4, in case of, let's say, queen c7, then we have bishop f4. In case of queen d8, then what would be here the easiest way of continuation after queen d8?
The sequence being dc5 first, right?
D6. We are now with d takes c5, which is the worst option here for black. Just a question after knight c4, queen d8, what should we do? Or the other question is what definitely we shouldn't do.
No, we're not exchanging queens, if that's the question. So
yes, exactly. So what would be an easy move?
The easy move is to get the queen out of the way, play queen e2 or queen c2.
Yes, rook d1 is followed up, and actually black is
dead. Yeah.
So in case of b takes c5, which was also not played in this position, then here the easiest continuation is to play actually simply bishop b2. And the idea of bishop b2 is not only e5, but also maybe bishop takes f6. Yeah. For example, like bishop e7 now, and now knight c4, and okay, also g7 pawn is hanging. In the game, after c5, queen takes c5 was played. Now the question is how to continue after queen takes c5.
Good question. Okay. Bishop a3 is a natural move.
Yes, there's bishop a3 as one option, but what could be the other option?
Bishop b2.
Yes, and what do you think from those two moves, which is actually a little bit more, how to say, intuitively appealing?
Actually, bishop b2 is a better move.
Yes, bishop b2 is a better move. I mean, like sometimes you have this kind of necessity, okay, you're developed with an attack, but here bishop b2, the silent approach is much, much stronger because, okay, it gives you additional options connected with f6 and maybe e5, and the bishop on a3 you don't need because you cannot do anything about d6 right now. So bishop b2 was played, now black tried d5. And here after like a kind of setup of 3 more moves, white was winning. So how to continue here after d5?
Okay. Let me think for a second. All right, so I don't have any checks. I can threaten the queen for bishop a3.
Yes,
which
but this
is actually interesting.
uh-huh.
I can capture on d5, but if I capture immediately, then I'm helping black.
True.
I can capture on f6.
Yep.
Which appears to be the best move.
Well, you forgot one very natural move here.
I can also play knight b3, and I can play rook c1.
And what do you think here is by far the most natural and powerful move?
It's rook c1.
Yes, rook c1 was played because rook c7 is an awful threat.
Yep.
Played queen e7, and now he simply captured on f6. As queen takes f6 once again would be crucial with rook c7 to come. G takes f6 was played, and e takes d5. Now rook d8 was played. Knight c4. The pieces are jumping, and the king is still in the center.
Yeah,
and
on top of it, even if it castles, it's not exactly safe either. Yeah.
So and queen f3, and white later on won the game playing rook d1, and okay, you will, and b6 is hanging right now. So this was just a kind of easy win for white. And okay, as a kind of rule is like when your opponent's king is in the center and you can send some dynamic, try to, well, get the squares needed for that.
Yeah. Now the big thing here is to see that it's like what piece would you like to remove from your position, and it's pawn on c4.
Yep.
So okay.
Let's stay a little bit with tactical chess. 1 second, I have just to see where here I have to close it. 1 second. Then you are white, and white to move here.
Okay. All right, material is the same. Space advantage for white. The queen is having a nice vacation on a3.
That's very good indeed. The queen is far away.
Okay. All right. If I to paraphrase what you have said many times, if I could take a piece and put it, I would put the white rook on g3, but I can't easily get there.
That's true. But you can already like sense that the black's king is a bit in danger because, okay, his pieces are far away. The queen on a3 is a little bit disorientated, to put it in small words. And you have some bishop, knight, and queen shining towards the king.
Yeah. All right, so I can play knight e5, rook e3, and then swing the rook over. That may be a little bit slow.
Knight e5, okay, maybe after knight e5, at least like, okay, probably c5 is one candidate move to activate actually, and rook d8 is another one, and your d4 is a bit shaky too. But I probably would play c5, which makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's the key defensive resource for black here, because without it, so we have a nice intersection at c5 that would basically block both queen and bishop from returning. So we're gonna start by playing c5.
You want to play c5. Phew. This was honestly not suggested, and I have to think now what I would do. And you're like, yes, sometimes it happens.
Okay. Yes. All right.
It sometimes does happen. Okay, probably I will take on c5, I guess. And then you want to play rook e3? No.
Then I can play rook. I know. If I play rook e3, I'm giving you a tempo. I need to play.
Actually, like this position, I mean, this pattern in this position actually is not only in this position. Sometimes you can even get it in some kind of London structures in the Caracan system or setups. But here, of course, it was from the Slav. But I mean, if you see this pattern once, you will always like remember it as a pattern which can exist in Dutch positions.
Okay. So c5 is too direct. Fine.
Yes, also like, I mean, you have to consider once you play knight e5 and rook e3 and I will hit c5, I have queen b2 to come, which gives me a tempo, and queen takes d4, which is killing the attack immediately.
Yes. So I can't do that. Okay, fair enough. And c5 is too direct. Okay. And knight e5, as you said, is too slow. All right. All right, so let's think for a second. Candidate moves. c5 we just eliminated. d5.
Well, we don't have a bishop on b2, I'm afraid.
No, we don't. And we don't have time to bring the rook to g3 or anywhere meaningful, obviously. So what we can do instead is, can we play g4?
Very good. g4 is actually like huge advantage for white because you don't have a defense against g5.
Yeah.
And suddenly the king will be under mating attack, which is totally unexpected. But you know, sometimes in the London defense, especially in the Caracan setup, they're even like in this kind of Karlsbad structures with a pawn on d5 and a pawn on c3. Their ideas, just that you will remember it, king h1 and rook g1, with the same idea of g4 actually.
Hey Gauri, welcome to. Thank you for joining the stream. Thank you for being here. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you too. So the idea here is to basically push g4 and then bring the rook through g1 at some point.
Here, no, not here. I mean, here the idea is just g4, g5, and you have a mating threat on h7, which is actually killing. But sometimes, I mean, like in the Karlsbad structures, when the pawn chain is like this, let's say, and you have a pawn on c3, then in these kind of situations, also with the knight on f3 and the bishop on d3, you have sometimes this king h1 and rook g1 ideas with g4, g5. Such things exist. Actually, there was a game from the candidates of Anna Muzichuk against Gunina where you see this kind of pattern.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I will like check one of these games when I find it, and I will show you next time. So here g4 is actually a killer because you don't have a good defense. And the game rook fd8 was played. For example, if c5, you can ignore it because you have g5 to come.
Yeah.
This bishop takes f3 is not helpful because after g takes f6, okay, black is almost mated because, okay, the biggest issue is that the queen is totally isolated from the defense. So after g4 in the game, rook fd8 was played. Now next move is clear. It was g5.
Okay.
Capturing on g5. Knight takes g5, and he tried queen b2. Now it's you, Nicola, to finish the game in the same style like Svetkovic.
A fellow Serb? Okay.
I'm not sure that he is Serbian or from Macedonia. This is like hard for me to say because the endings or these Kovic are almost everywhere.
All right. From former Yugoslavia. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I have a check on h7. King f8.
Yes.
Okay, where is the mating sequence here?
Okay, it's not actually a mating sequence. It's just like playing this position from intuitional point of view.
All right, so I don't think we need to do any violence here.
Well, we can actually, because this is actually also a kind of typical pattern, which is often as existing when the H file is open, actually.
Okay. All right. All right, so let's focus on candidate moves. That check on h7 is followed by king f8.
Yes.
We have an undefended rook on a1 if we move the rook on from e1, so any kind of e6 motive is out of the window.
Yes, but the question actually is, do we need the rook on a1 and all? We have everything already given when we look at the e file and the bishop and the knight and the shining square on h8.
Okay. So is the motive just play bishop g6?
Yes, it's a very
That's
simple.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
It is actually winning easily, because in case of queen takes d4, I mean, actually in the game he played bishop h7 check and first move rook d1, but and then one move later he went for bishop g6. But bishop g6 immediately works simply because after queen takes d4, you can give a check here.
On h8 and I can take on.
Yes, you have to go. I mean, if you go here, I think it will be mated at some point with rook e6. Not sure immediately, or if you first take, or no, you'd first take on g7.
Take on g7, but after queen g7, it's more or less game over.
f7 is like falling, so that's why actually here in the game it wasn't later, but after knight g8, simply bishop takes f7. If you give a check, you have king f1, and the game is basically over.
Yeah.
Too many threats, let's say. Okay, but this was, of course, about the g4, g5 idea. I mean, as a kind of thing, whenever like there's h6 and you have these connections, sometimes, especially with a knight on f3 and the h7 square, which is already visualized, then g4, g5 may work. Okay, next position. Let's go into a bit more positional stuff. Let me see what we can.
Gaur is asking what are if you could share the names of the players.
It's Cvetkovic against Milkovic.
It's Cvetkovic versus Milkovic.
Yes, you better in the pronunciation than me.
Yeah, of course.
Clearly. Yes, I don't know. I mean, like you write them as a Milkovic, you write with a L and then a J before you put the Kovic on it.
Yes, the J in languages of former Yugoslavia is pronounced like a English Y. It's actually the same with my name. Like I'm Stoyshin, and the J is yeah. So.
No, I know that that J is pronounced like a Y because
yeah.
I was married with someone from Albania, so it was the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so here in this position you are Kramnik.
I'm white.
You're black.
Okay.
And white was Aronian.
You're welcome, Gauri. Thank you for being here. All right, so what is the... So this is Aronian Kramnik, okay?
And Kramnik played another brilliant game, I would say.
All right, material is equal.
Mm-hmm.
One check on g3.
Mm-hmm.
Which is marginal interesting.
At some point, yep.
Advantage in space goes to black.
Yep, because of the pawn on g4.
Advantage in development goes to black.
Kind of, yes. Because he's only one move away from castling, even though the king on e8 objectively is quite safe.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do long castle here, but objectively, the only purpose of long castle would be to bring the rook to d8 for some motive there. Okay. We have a wandering queen yet again. I have a capture on g3 and capture on a2, none of which are meaningful. I have a threat on b5, which is actually marginal interesting.
Play b5, you mean? But then after queen a6, suddenly you have to react.
Yeah.
Which may not be great in terms of giving white time to eventually improve.
Okay. White is very weak on the light squares, but to take advantage of it, I need to remove that pawn on e4. So if I play, I'm thinking loud, if I play bishop d5.
I think I can take on d5.
Yeah, and if I go to queen e2, you have queen d1, and I don't have anything.
Yep.
Not to mention that my queen is wandered where it shouldn't. So, but
this is actually the game from the candidates in Berlin back in 2018 when Kramnik was playing roller coaster in this tournament, losing, winning, winning, losing, and basically indirectly was decisive for the eventual tournament winner because his results were totally unpredictable.
Yeah. All right, so bishop d5, however tempting it is, it's not the move. Another candidate, and threat b5 doesn't work. I don't have a threat against anything else. This is not about this position screams tactics. So there are a couple of obvious targets here in white's position. One target is g3.
Yes, very good.
So big candidate move is queen c7.
Queen c7 with the simple threat of the sacrifice, let's say.
And that actually looks like the best move.
Well, I wouldn't be that sure, but let's imagine I go king g2.
Okay. Simple. All right. Yeah, pawn breaks, I agree, Gauri. All right, so queen c7, king g2, f5.
Then if, for example, well, now I have to think as well because queen c7 was not given. Bad annotations.
Yes, okay.
Because you might be right in this moment, f5 is strong. Queen c7.
Yeah, Gauri is saying that...
maybe I play king h2 actually, not king g2. That's a bit safer than actually have a reaction after f5.
Actually, Gauri has a good idea. He's basically saying you don't need to play king c7. You can just play f5 first.
Yes, he's a very wise man.
Now he's an FM, so, and he is, I think he has the 5 IM norms, so he just needs to
now
get
the question. Yes, now the question is after f5. What will you play after e takes f5?
Good question.
This you have to answer before you suggest something out of the intuitional point of view, because f5 looks tempting indeed, but you need to be concrete with e takes f5 because okay,
I can give a check on d5. Like I have a check on d5, which is a natural move.
When I play king g1.
Okay. All right. And I can play queen e2.
And then I
You
go
play knight d2, and you're defending the rook, and you're defending f3.
maybe even queen d1 with idea of rook e1.
Yeah.
Queen exchange. So, but okay, once again, f5, e takes f5. What candidate moves do we have in this position?
Well, I still have the check on g3, which actually seems to be winning.
Yep, that is the
That's the
case.
move, and that's the game.
Yes, the game was f5 because Aronian basically just missed that after e takes f5, knight takes g3 is ending the game. As f takes g3, bishop g2 check, and queen e2 is a game changer. You have to play rook f2, but after the check, g3 is falling. So after f5, however, Aronian kept fighting. He went for bishop g5. Next move. Now you have to play until the end like Kramnik here.
Okay. Is anything stopping me from taking on g5?
No, your intuition is totally right. When you are attacking, of course, you shouldn't lose time. And here you can already sense that this exchange sacrifice gives you enough compensation. Next move.
Good question. All right, so okay. All right, so I still have that check on g3.
But if you don't find anything forcing, you just sacrifice a bit too much.
Agreed. I have, and I don't see anything concrete.
No, there's nothing concrete. So let's just play.
I can play f4.
And this is actually by far the strongest move because, okay, you exchange down, you increase pressure by f4, and you close potentially files for the rooks.
Yeah.
Gives, of course, white no chance here to strike for a counterattack on the e file, for example. Now, queen d1 was played. Not sure about that, but okay, it's very difficult here to react because g3 is also under attack. So queen d1 have it in the game.
Okay.
So now what is the next Kramnik kind of move?
I can play f3.
Okay, but with f3, why you want to play f3 if you're not sure about the mating issue? f3, maybe I can still try like knight d2 and then sacrifice back on f3. But with the pawn on f4, you always have the potential ideas of capturing on g3, which is just killing white's king from the easier.
Fair enough. I can take on g3 with the.
He didn't take on g3.
I can take on g5.
Also, this he didn't do. He just decided to bring another piece into the attack.
So he played rook d8.
Yes, Kramnik played rook d8. Now queen c1 was played, and now he captured on g3.
Okay.
Knight a3 happened in the game, and now another kind of Kramnik move was executed.
Okay.
Putting an awful threat.
All right, so what's the awful threat here? There are so many.
I mean, there are probably like plenty of moves winning, but I liked this choice from Kramnik a lot.
Hey, Vasan, thank you for joining the stream. It's very good to see you. All right, so how do we? So we have a check on G2.
Yep, which is not yet a killer.
But it's a motive for that.
Yes, and this motive he used Kramnik to create a threat about that motive.
Okay. All right, so candidate moves that's one check. There's a capture on F2, it doesn't make sense.
No, it's just opening up the opponents.
Tempting as Queen F7 it's probably not the right move.
Probably it's also winning. I wouldn't be surprised, but okay, you have to calculate F takes G3, knight takes G3, and then the captures on F1, and suddenly like you trade a lot of pieces which you actually don't want.
No. Okay. Can I play? All right, so what is the right sequence here?
What is a move which increases the pressure and which is like indirectly bringing more forces towards White's king?
I can play Rook D3.
Yes, it's a very strong move because, okay, now suddenly like Aronian has to be worried about many kind of options here.
Yeah.
So Rook D3 was played and the game Rook D1 was the answer, trying to get rid of this attacking piece. And here another Kramnik move took place.
Okay. So we need to bring the queen into play.
Yes, very good thought, but in a Kramnik kind of style.
We can exchange the rooks and play Queen G5.
Probably this is winning too, but
that's not what you want.
No, I want the Kramnik move.
To be very honest with you, the Kramnik was at the period when I wasn't really dealing with chess much. So I don't really, if you tell me Kasparov move or Karpov move, I know what you're talking about. I know what Carlsen move is.
This could also be a Kasparov move. This is definitely not a Karpov move because, okay, Karpov probably wouldn't even get in such messy positions unless it happens on a non-voluntary pace.
No. All right, so we have a rook hanging here. But we can, I can understand the Tali move too. I always thought that Kramnik was a positional player.
Actually, Kramnik is, to me, one of the strongest players when it comes to flexibility. He was positionally super strong, but he was also dynamically very strong. He was actually a good mix of Karpov and Kasparov combined. Just maybe from the mental strength, he was not as great as Kasparov, but I mean, he beat Kasparov in a match actually. So
yes, and Kasparov is still salty about it.
Proper player. But okay, Kramnik to me was one of the strongest players we had.
I watched actually one match I watched during my hiatus was Leko versus Kramnik. That was before engines were as strong as they are now. All right. So the killer here is if we remove the bishop on e6, if we give a check on e4. Oh,
So how we do that?
so what do we do? I mean, we forget the rook is under attack and play bishop d5.
Yes, that's what happened in the game because this is actually just a killer. Bishop d5. If you take on d3, I take on e4, I take on d3, and I will mate you with plenty of options. In the game, actually, f3 was played. After e takes d5, queen e4 check, and she takes f2, the game is also over. So f3 happened in the game, and now Kramnik simply took on f3
Yeah.
with a pawn.
Ouch.
Because, okay, probably like here, many ways guide to Rome. It's like indifferent. After rook takes c3, I can take queen takes e4, and I'm winning here. Even rook e3 doesn't change as f2 is leading into a mate no matter what.
Mm. Yeah,
So
Gauri is saying in chat that the Kramnik is playing like Kasparov, and I think I agree with that.
yes, that's what I said. I mean, that's why he was able to just play no matter what. Queen e2 happened, rook e1, and well, after g2, I think Mr. Ahonian saw enough. Even though I'm not sure where it's mated after king. Okay, after king h2, at least I have g1 check, I guess.
The G1
You have
double
to go
check, and then F2.
f2 and then a check on e1, yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, that was a nice sequence. And now I think it's time to switch from the dynamic chapter into the very boring positional chapter. Okay, not so boring, but let's start with Karpov. Like some nice sequences of Karpov can't be wrong to get the other style as well. I'm a big fan of Karpov's games. They are so precise and positional means.
You know, in the 70s when I was growing up, because I was the strongest player around in my youth group, I was nicknamed Karpov, and I never had affinity for a Karpov as a player for whatever reason.
Actually, like your style is much more dynamic than Karpov's style itself. Yeah. So
I also have a little. Am I white or black?
You are white, and you have to find the sequence here to remain advantage for white, and that's not so simple because you have quite some options. I will just get myself something to drink.
Sure.
Right, I will be back.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll think here.
You will think how to take and how to do it.
Okay. Okay, so no checks. There is a capture on d4 with a bishop or the knight. I don't have any other meaningful captures. I don't think this is about pole challenges. I don't want to play e3 in this position. Though some sequence along the lines of playing e3. Where is knight going? Knight can go to f5. That doesn't seem to be very... No, can't go to f5 because... Oh, it can go to f5. Okay. The idea was then to play... The idea here is to play queen c6, maybe change the queens, double the rooks, and play against the c7 pawn. That would be a very Karpov move.
Ah, you're very strong. I hear good moves. So what is the right sequence here, Nicola?
The right sequence is to capture on d4 and then play queen c6.
Very strong, but how do we capture on d4?
That's the $64 question.
What's your intuition saying?
My intuition is telling me to keep the bishop pair.
Well,
but on the other hand, if I take on d4 with the bishop, that pawn on d4 is weak and attacked by f3.
Actually, I can just tell you by checking it, no matter how you take on d4, if your follow-up is queen c6, then first of all, you are a positional genius. Second of all, you have great advantage in both scenarios.
Okay.
So yep.
What did Karpov do?
He took with the bishop on d4.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
But the right sequence is queen c6 is here the move to really like see, because if you take on d4, I take on b4, and then actually black is surviving after queen c6. Actually, black will get in a horrible positional position. After queen c6 in the game, queen takes c6 was played, rook takes c6, and bishop d7. And knowing Karpov, what did he play here?
What Karpov played?
Yep.
Kasparov would play knight d4.
Well, actually, not only Kasparov. This is actually not a tactical move. It's rather a positional move, I would say.
Yeah, just take on d4.
Yes, he took on d4. And maybe actually this makes a difference if you compare that with, let's say,
That's why taking with bishop is better. Yeah.
Here, after take, and bishop d7. Okay, but here the difference is like that this knight is loose, and maybe this can be used as well. I want to just check it because I'm curious myself. It was not given in the annotations. That's why. Take.
Thank you, Gauri. Yeah, yeah, I looked at that first too, but I didn't like the position after knight b4 either.
But okay, the difference is like, as I said, we can use the fact that this is that the d5 is loose. So here rook c4 is good because c5 is not an issue as d5 indirectly is hanging. So that's why here also white would have huge advantage. But okay, the other way is more Karpov style, to take with a bishop c6 and knight takes d4. Now black took on d4 on c6, and wait, let me just
if black doesn't take on c6, it's even worse.
Yes, he took rook e8 and rook c1, and okay, later on Karpov won this game by just capturing on a7, getting another pawn, and okay, he finally executed. So one question for you, Nicola. Do you know the legendary game of Karpov against Unziger?
No.
No.
I may recognize the position, but
Because
I don't think so.
Then, in my opinion, we should get this. 1 second. Let me just set up a moment. Yes, we will set up this moment.
Okay.
1 second. Then this is like one of, yeah.
Okay. Just your camera seems to have creeped up. Just yeah. Thanks.
So 1 second.
It's a nice painting.
Nice. This is actually my grandmom was a painter.
Ah, yeah.
And we have like millions of these paintings in the whole house because it's the mother of my mom. And we also met a kind of auction about her paintings.
Okay.
But she never wanted us to sell any.
Am I white or black here?
You are white, and here it is a moment when we should try to play on like Karpov. It is some kind of Chigorin in the
Yeah,
Rulon,
it's Lopez, yeah.
but at this time I think they were not so precise in opening theory to understand that the knight, I mean, this knight c6 and knight d8, the knight on d8 is even more horrible. Yet you have to be very precise here in order not to give black the right
Yeah.
moves. And it's starting in this position already to do the right thing.
Okay, so I have actually played this.
With black
So,
or with
both. I play Ryu Lopez. I play martial attack as black, and I have played this again. Played these positions against Chiu and quite a few people. So, all right. So the one motive here is to play a4,
uh-huh.
which may or may not make sense right now.
What is the other motive?
The other motive is to put the knight on f1.
Yes.
And then basically put the knight on e3 or g3 and
Okay,
proceed from there.
that's of course true, which is always possible, but this is your
That's
own plan execution.
it's not concrete enough in this position, I don't think.
What about the concreteness? I mean, like if black had, let's say, 3 moves, what would black play in the next 3 moves?
Yes, it's straightforward. c4, knight b7, knight c5.
Exactly. And actually, like this kind of c4 pattern, here are indeed
Is appealing. Yep.
appealing. And for this reason, of course, a4 here is the strongest move because we will get just control of the a file unless like bishop b7 is like misleading towards the knight. The other thing which you should know as a kind of prophylactical pattern is the b3 stuff. So if you play b3, the idea is always then after c4 to react with b4 and to get the square on c5 like this.
Mm-hmm.
This is a typical pattern which you see in a lot of Chigorin, Ruy Lopez things. Defenses. That's why just to remember this b3, it's against c4 to have the idea of b4. Here in this position, a4 is much stronger because of the fact that knight b7 wants to be played. So a4 here is the right move. And now...
well, there is some advantage to playing 25 adoption matches.
Yeah, I played Chigorin with black, but I always got somehow punishment, so I stopped playing it.
Yeah, I actually don't, to be quite frank, Lizzy, I don't like this position for black, which is why I play Marshall.
Yeah, Marshall makes more sense, even so there you have to also learn a lot of theory and you can get a draw in a lot of ways, but yeah. So rook b8 was played. If, for example, like b4, then actually like you can take, and play knight b3. The idea is bishop e3, rook c1, and you get a really nice play on the queen side.
Yeah, and you play a5 at some point to prevent a5. And
manage
then,
that, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but here in this position, actually, it's more important to stop knight b7, knight c5 immediately. That's why here I think and bishop e3 is more precise.
I've lost so many games against Chiu because I let her do that.
So rook b8 was played in the game. And now after rook b8, you are Karpov again. And the next 2 moves are also important.
Who was black? Oh, Unziker.
Unziker. But this is actually one of the most legendary games. And this game is the role model game to explain space advantage, actually.
Okay.
But we will get later towards this brilliant game. I would say one of the most brilliant games I've seen by Karpov.
Oh, yeah?
A must know, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, so all right. So motive number one in this position. I mean, I can take on b5 and play along the a file, but that's not precise enough.
Well, actually, like here, a takes
I
b5
can.
makes a lot of sense because you get the a file. This can't be wrong.
Yeah.
So a takes b5, he played. This is an automatic move because if you don't play it, you may lose the a file if, for example, like at some point, black would close it. But now the next move is actually very important.
Okay, a natural move is c1 and a natural move is c4.
But then I will probably like play bishop d7 and at least try to get them pressure on the b file.
All right, so let me do the usual. I don't have any captures that are meaningful. I don't have any checks. I don't even have any freaking threats here.
Yes, but you know what black still wants to do in the next couple of moves, right?
If I allow black to play knight b7, c4, knight b7.
Yes, then black is actually not unhappy.
No. So I was kind of hoping to stop that with playing c4, but that doesn't work.
I mean, it works, but actually then you will lose any kind of attacking chances also like on the queen side. You give up the queen side for good by playing c4.
Yeah.
Because then you are the one who always is, psychologically speaking, under pressure because of the c4, bishop d7. You always have to calculate b takes c4. You always have to be alerted towards that.
Agreed. So the other pawn challenge here is to play b4.
Yes, and that actually like puts the pressure on black's side because now black has to be alerted always with potential captures on c5. Another option is b3, which is like prophylactical, but here actually b4 makes sense because it's about pressure as well.
Yeah, and the knight can never get to d3, and if white plays c4, so what is the best sequence for black here? To take on b4?
Well, no, actually what happened in the game was fine. There was a kind of very crucial moment. We get to that moment later when it's your task to find the best sequence for black. If, for example, like c4, then you have also like a very, let's say, simple plan, which you already mentioned, Nicola, because the plan is simply to now go knight f1, then knight h2 and push f4. For example, like knight f1, knight e8, knight h2, let's say, if f6, because if he opens himself anyway, f4, knight f3 is quick, f6 and f4, then you bring your knight back to f3 and you will play like in the game of Karpov against Spassky, which was played in 1973.
That was the candidate semifinal, right?
I don't know. I just have it here mentioned in the annotation, actually.
Let me. Okay. Yeah, I've contested this position many times against Julian Landau and Chiu. What usually happens if I'm playing a blitz game, I run out of time. Okay.
So here in the game of Unziger, knight b7 was played, which was fine still. Because, it makes also sense for black not to close immediately the queenside wing in order also to have some
flexibility.
Flexibility, because otherwise it will be one shot on one wing. So now knight f1 was played.
Okay.
Bishop d7. And here bishop e3 happened in the game.
Yep.
And now after bishop e3, rook a8 was also fine, trying to get back the file, and queen d2 happened in the game. And here it was the moment for Plak to be super precise in his next choice.
Okay. So let me ask you this before I start calculating. For white, the zen of this position is to, at some point, first, do not allow this b7, c5, potentially d3 maneuver, right?
b7, c5, b7, c5. Okay, this is not possible anyway.
No, I know. But meaning, if I'm playing white, I need to prevent that. And then, at some point, I want to push f4.
Maybe yes, but okay, the first idea could be, and before I will start to do something on the king side to get the maximum of the queen side.
Yeah.
And the maximum of the queen side for white, what could that be?
Play on the a file.
To actually get the a file into the possession. And for this, all I need is basically to place my bishop to d3, rook a2, and rook a1. That's basically the way of trying to possess the a file. So this is a kind of positional threat here. Bishop d3, rook a2, and rook a1. And for this positional threat here, it was very important for Plak to be ready for these kind of moves in order to not lose the a file. And he went wrong now in this position, Unziger.
So since I'm sorry, we're actually talking about this. Am I aiming? No, I can't, because this bishop d3, if I take on b4, is strong. So basically, there is no advantage for black to... All right, so let me think for a second, actually, before I keep yapping. I have a capture on b4. All right.
Yes.
Which may or may not make sense.
Which actually rather is like making your life harder, because the queen is not having many spaces, and then on c1 it can be attacked.
Yeah. So I have this rather stupid knight on b7.
Which you cannot move away, because if you play knight d8, then you lose the control of the connection of the rooks.
Yeah.
I mean, the first question you should ask yourself is like, okay, rook a2, rook a1 is the idea, and you should be ready to meet this idea by guarding the a8 rook in order not to lose the a file. So you need the other rook and the other queen for that.
Yeah, which basically means to disentangle myself, I'm going to play, if I'm Unziker, I'm playing rook c8.
Yes, this was Unziker's move, but this move is wrong.
Ah, okay.
The thing is like, this is actually super deep and very, very difficult. So I mean, he thought that, okay, if he plays rook c8 and queen d8, he will keep the stability of the a file. But the problem which he discarded was that once I capture on a8, he has to take with the rook, and c5 is loose.
Yeah.
And the difference is like, if I bring the rook to b8 and play queen c8, I have everything under control because the queen is additionally on c5.
Yeah.
And this is so difficult to really understand that it's not like a huge blame towards Unziker not to see the difference. That basically means if he had played rook fb8 here, let's say, bishop d3 and queen c8, then of course he's always ready to meet, for example, like rook takes a8, because the queen guards here on c5. But if the queen was on d8, then he cannot play like this, because after rook takes a8, rook takes a8, nothing guards c5, and I can take, and e5 is falling.
You're gonna laugh, but I actually wanted to play rook b8 for the wrong reason. I wanted to keep the d8 for the knight.
Yes, but okay, this is like not about intuition. This is really like about like feeling
the deep understanding of the position. Yeah.
And yeah, this was a moment when actually, like here, everything is still fine for black. But since Unziger played rook fc8, now after rook fc8, bishop d3 was played, he went for g6, which is anyway normal. He wants to get some space for his pieces. Now knight g3, bishop f8 happened. And here's the moment, for example, like if queen d8, then actually I can take on c5, and you needed the queen on c8. That's why the rook on b8 was stronger. And that's why here he went for bishop f8. And after bishop f8, rook a2, it is white to get the possession of the a file. Small thing, but important. And now actually c4 was played. And here it is very difficult to understand the next move by white, but actually it was once again a very deep decision by Karpov to understand where to move with his bishop now.
Okay. Well, bishop c2 loses the rook.
Yes, this can't be played.
Bishop b1 relinquishes the a file.
Well, the question is like, can you really possess the a file after bishop b1? If you play, for example, like rook takes a2, queen takes a2, and you play queen d8, then I have always queen a6, and the b7 is under attack. You have to protect it with rook b8, and I have time for bishop c2 and rook a1, and you will not get the a file.
Okay, the alternative moves are bishop e2 and bishop f1. The problem is that that's the side track in rule up, as we want that bishop on b1 h7 to reinforce e4, and then if we ever play f4, we need it there. So he actually played bishop b1.
But he played bishop b1 not for the reason you mentioned. He played bishop b1 because what you think is actually the only chance by black to ever get counterplay?
Good question.
And that would actually like then make it clear why he chose bishop b1 over bishop f1.
To exert pressure, on e4.
Well, that's one issue, but I mean, what is
f5 at some point?
Yes, f5 is the only difference. For example, like if you had played bishop f1 in this position, then let's say after knight e8, rook a1, you capture on a2, I can push f5. Okay. And this, of course, maybe, I mean, okay, even this position looks very suspicious for black, but this was the reason for Karpov not to choose the route with the bishop on f1, but to choose the other route, knowing that he will anyway not lose the a file, because after bishop b1, okay, if you want to possess the a file, then always here after queen d8, as already mentioned, I have queen a6. You have to protect, and then actually I can go for bishop c2 and then rook
a8, and I can still control the a file. Okay. Yeah. Hey, 2511, it's very good to see you.
So that's why Karpov played bishop b1. Maybe it's a bit, I mean, bishop f1 by the engine actually gets preference. So, I mean, it's maybe a little bit too deep for relax, or too much respect of this f5 push. Hard to say, because likely for tactical reasons, it's not that great.
Yeah, but because Karpov doesn't want to give its opponents any counterplay. Hey, 2511, sorry about the Nightbot. It's Nightbot is Nightbot, and we'll figure that out how that works here. So thanks for being here, Eric. Okay.
Okay, here in the game, actually now after bishop e1, queen d8 was played. After knight d8, for example, the idea is, of course, at some point to take on a2, play queen b7 and rook a8. And here is a very nice way for Karpov to prevent this idea and still preserving the A file.
Okay. Nema na čemu, Mladene, hvala i vama na učešću u arenama. Okay. So I missed a step. What are we preventing?
Okay, the thing is like now, if in case of bishop knight d8, the idea of black is obviously to take on a2, to play queen b7 and rook a8 and possess the A file.
Okay.
So here actually in the annotation or in Karpov's comments, he suggested rook e2. And the idea was that after taking and queen b7, he plays queen a1 and rook a2.
Okay. I'm going to make one statement about Karpov and Kasparov for that matter. If a game is supposed to be played for, and I'm not going to talk about Carlsen or any, but if the game is playing for my life, I am against a human. I want Kasparov to play that game. If it's played against the engine, I want Karpov to play that game. Okay. I feel bad for poor Hunziker.
Yes,
because after rook a2, he strategically lost.
Okay, but it's the game went further into some kind of funny craziness. So don't worry, you will see a lot of moments. So queen d8 was the answer by Hunziker. And now the next move actually should be a move or a pattern you should have seen one time in your life, because that actually is the reason why this game like got a kind of legendary reputation.
I'm white.
You are white, yes.
Okay.
And I'm sure you have seen this pattern already because it's a kind of standard pattern now in these kind of structures.
All right. Okay, so pattern is what? Please tell me he played knight h2.
No, this is, it's much more sophisticated.
Okay.
I mean, what is black's threat, positionally speaking?
Well, the fabled knight e8 and f5, right?
Not necessarily, because it will not take, it will take him too long to play knight e8 and knight g7. It takes some time, but I mean, like, in terms of the A file, we are still
talking about to take on a2 and play rook a8.
Yes, also you have to take into account when you lack space, and it's clear because of the pawn on d5, black lacks space advantage. The more pieces he exchanges, the better for his comfort zone, let's say, because he has less.
You have telegraphed the move. Rook b2?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
It's not, you don't give, I mean, Karpov doesn't give up A files just like that.
Okay. All right. And, all right, so, all right, let me think for a second. The threat is rook a2 followed by rook a8.
Yes, and the more pieces are exchanged, the better for the comfort zone of black, because black lacks space here.
Okay. All right, so I don't see Karpov making any kind of sacrifice in this position.
No, it's not a sacrifice, but this is actually a move which very often now can happen in these structures. I mean, probably you didn't meet it yet with black because you likely decided not to play this Shikorin setup anymore.
No.
But even in the prayer system, the structure with b4, c4 can be similar, and this move had been practiced also in the prayer system, this kind of pattern.
Yeah. I haven't played prayer system in 30 years, but yeah, I hear you. Actually, I switched to Marshall not to play these positions.
Well, I am not surprised.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So we need to fight for the control of a file. So if we play rook e2, just hypothetically,
Yes, then I will take on a2 and will play rook a8.
and you're happy.
I'm happy that I even get rid of one pair of rooks because, okay, if you look at black right now, the knight on b7 has no squares. The rook on c8 are also some kind of tied up. The position looks a little bit, let's say, I mean, compact for black in terms of space.
Sure. And that bishop on f8 is not going anywhere.
Nope, that's all that. Yeah.
And all the black square complex on the queen side is weak as heck. All right. You laughed when I suggested rook b2.
Yes, because Karpov actually eventually wanted to possess the A file. So what he did was just to neutralize it, prepare, and then unneutralize it when the moment comes.
All right, I don't see it, but let me think. I mean, rook a5 sacrifices an exchange for nothing, and that's a stupid move. Rook. All right, I'm officially now confused, Lizzy, I have to admit.
Okay, how to prevent the rook exchange on a2? With what move? If you don't want to move your rook away and leave the A file, you have only one option to prevent the capture on a2.
Outside of moving the rook?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'm officially confused, even more confused now. All right, so I can't move the rook. I have no piece to put in front of the rook.
That's not true.
Oh, Jesus. He played bishop a7?
Yes, and this is actually the standard pattern in these kind of structures. I mean, I was sure that you have seen it before.
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Okay. But now you will always remember it.
Oh, my Jesus. All right.
And this is very like, you know, and then the idea is...
Well, that's why we are doing this. Oh, my goodness.
I mean, the idea of it is very simple.
It's
now
very,
the bishop
it makes perfect sense because that
neutralizes everything. You cannot get rid of this bishop because you lack space. And my idea is, okay, I will get the bishop away. I will play rook a3, maybe queen a2 and rook a1. And the A file in the moment I want to retreat the bishop is mine.
All right. Thank you. I've learned a pattern that I wouldn't consider in 100 years. Thank you. That's perfect.
Yeah. So bishop a7, that's the reason why this game is so famous.
Yeah, I can see that because, you know.
So bishop a7 was...
good company as people who would never have considered this. Okay.
The bishop a7, now knight e8 was played, and okay, now once again Karpov just tried to execute his plan. So what did he do here?
Natural move is bishop c2.
Yes, he played bishop c2. It was time again to maneuver the bishop around. Now knight c7 was played, and rook ea1. Now queen e7. And now another kind of Karpov move came. I already have to laugh because actually, like, you know, it's very deep stuff. So what do you think he did here?
Okay. All right, so if we allow f5.
Okay, f5 currently doesn't work, and it's very hard for black to prepare it on the long run because he has to move a lot of pieces around that.
Yeah.
I mean, Karpov made a move to have a perfect coordination and stabilization, and he didn't feel stable, which is of course a little bit funny, but he still didn't feel like totally connected and stable in one regard.
In one regard.
Yes, which is obviously very deep. I mean, I can tell you the move because...
No, don't.
Okay.
Don't. So what is unstable in this position from a white standpoint?
Nothing is unstable in this position. I mean, from the white's point of view, but let's say the coordination can be a little bit better, let's say.
Okay.
Also, there's some idea behind that move.
All right. Okay. So, how do we improve this position if we are white? If we prepare f4, we are liberating black from being cramped.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to follow Liz's great idea, if I had one piece, where would I put it somewhere? Where would I put it? Now that bishop on. All right, so if I'm playing this by intuition, I'm probably going to play queen e3.
Queen e3, actually, I also like this move, but then maybe after f5 and knight takes t5, suddenly like there's unnecessary counterplay. Because you don't guard d5 pawn if you play queen e3. Probably I can consider really now like f5 and knight takes t5 and try to get some counterplay.
Fair enough. But I'm not sure you have time after I play like something like queen b6 and so on. Okay, fair enough.
But you cannot, I think after like, let's say queen e3, I play f5, and you want to play queen b6 here, but then it looks a bit shaky actually.
Yeah, that's not very un-Karpov-like.
Well, this is, I mean, it looks something like a mess, which probably he didn't want in a way. Because
no.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So all right. So let's be analytical for a second. This is not about checks or captures.
No, it's not.
I don't have a pawn challenge because even preparing one on f4 doesn't make any sense. Bishop on a7 needs to stay on s7.
Yes, it needs to stay on the a7 because after bishop e3 I can take and play rook a8. And that's what Karpov also understood, that he is currently not in the possession of revealing the pressure. But at some point, maybe he wants to be.
All right, very good. So we can't move. We can't move the bishop. We can't move the rooks. They're not moving the rooks. Queen is defending d5, and therefore indirectly countering f5. Knight on g3. Hey, Davina, it's very good to see you. Thank you for joining the stream. Oh, and thank you, Mladen Kuzner, for kind words. That's very greatly appreciated. I am doing my very first stream with Lizzy on YouTube, and I put it this way: Lizzy gave me a couple of doozers for warm up, and a couple of positions when I needed to find what Mamedjarov didn't see. So now I'm playing here as Karpov. Okay. So how do we improve here? Build an Alekhine gun on a file?
Well, basically, yes, that's what he did. He built an Alekhine gun on a file.
Yeah. Okay. And forget about d5?
Well, I mean, for now, f5 is not a threat because I have it under control. For now, d5 pawn is also guarded by the queen. And he can just at least objectively or hypothetically speaking, get a preparation towards the gun on the A file.
Okay. So, all right. So rook a3?
Nope, that's not Karpov-like. He did something else.
Okay.
Before rook a, the idea is rook a3 and then at some point queen a2, right?
Yeah.
So what is the disturbing fact?
Okay, bishop b1, thank you.
Yes, that's... I told you that it's not...
No. Here, look, the funny thing is that this is actually quite logical. The whole sequence, and Karpov has a crystal clear scene. You know, it's just, if you... It's like the bishop a7 move. You need to understand that you don't want to exchange the rooks and you don't want to lose a file. And once you understand that, then bishop a7 makes perfect sense. And here, if building an Alekhine gun is the motive, then bishop a1 makes perfect sense.
Yes, like with bishop e1, first of all, you put down connection towards those two guys, so you're a little bit more free, and the bishop anyway, if on c2 on b1, it's not needed now. And with bishop e1, okay, you keep more flexibility even in some terms to get the rook to f2 if you need to. Who knows?
Yeah.
So you just clear a little bit the space on the second rank as well. And objectively, you have this tension of creating this Alekhine gun with rook a3 and rook e3. So bishop b1 was played, bishop e8. And now, okay, after bishop e8, there's no more f5. So that's why here it was the moment for...
Black basically has no moves.
No, black has no moves. That's the thing. With bishop e8, he gets lost of the control with f5. So Karpov used this because he will not need the knight on g3 anymore. And he slowly is preparing the f4 push. Because now, since f5 is not an issue, he could move his knight away. So knight e2, knight now went to d8. Also not showing anything, and knight h2 was played, slowly preparing on the king's side to do something. So now bishop g7 happened in the game. And here it was time now to play f4. And okay, black cannot really afford to capture on f4 because, okay, then the knight will aim towards d4 square, and this is horrible.
Ouch, yeah.
Yeah, if you take here, you need the knight somehow on d7 to do something about it, but the knights are totally misplaced, and this knight f3, knight d4 is a game changer, despite the pin never works because of knight takes g6. So that's why actually Black decided to passively defend with f6. And now another kind of Karpov move took place here, squeezing down his opponent even more. Because now at some point, maybe the threat could really be to take and to play knight f7, knight e5, and aim for a good square for the knight. And that was a moment of Karpov to just decide to, well, squeeze his or tie him up more, Mr. Unziger.
I feel for Unziger, I have to admit.
Mm-hmm.
So what did he play here? F5?
Yes, he played f5. So with f5, of course, okay, you can create pressure towards f6. If you play g5, you weaken the square on h5, which was, of course, in the consideration of if g takes f5, e takes f5, then actually we will place a bishop to e4 and we will can create an attack with g4, king h1, and at some point we will kill you on the g file. So that's why Unziger decided to play g5, and now another Karpov move came into action.
Can I just make one general observation?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't familiar with this game. I have never seen a pair of stupider knights in any game ever.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I think g4 is kind of too much.
No, I mean, after g5, what got weak?
F6.
Okay, f6 you cannot, I mean, f6 pawn is anyway weak, but which square got weak?
Which square got weak? H5.
Yes, h5. So, and basically, what is the weakest piece in white's position?
It's a cross between this bishop on b1 and the knight on g3.
Yes, and that's what basically now Karpov decided to do something about it.
All right, so knight g3, bishop c2, bishop d1, bishop h5, yes. And you have...
that's what he did. And basically he understood if he changes his bishops, then the white squares get more horrible. And here everything is under control. So he went for bishop c2 back.
Oh my God. Oh God.
All bishop f7 and knight g3.
You know, I thought playing Dina Belenkaya was feeling squeezed, felt like feeling squeezed like a python. But this is a different level. Okay. Jesus.
So here, for example, like after knight g3, I mean, Unziger went for knight b7. If you play h5, which makes sense to try to control the square, then actually you will not hold it long. I have bishop d1, yeah. Queen 8, and bishop f3. And even if you try to play king h7, let's say, then after queen e2 and king h6, you can simply capture on h5. And this works tactically because after the capture, there's knight g4 and knight takes f6. So Unziger is not able to hold the control of the h5 square this way. That's why he voluntarily decided to give it up, playing knight b7. Now after knight b7, bishop d1 was played. And here already you see this really hard psychology, which can happen to someone who is always tied up and has no counterplay. He went for a very crucial mistake, which is not, let's say, him to, I mean, we can't blame him for this because it's very difficult psychologically, like to play such positions and to keep the patience somewhere.
Oh no, I would have lashed out much earlier.
Yes, so he played h6, which is just weakening the square on g6, which is additionally like a huge hit back. Maybe it was better to move like with queen e8 around and to wait until like something happens on h5. So bishop h5 was played. Now queen e8 and queen d1. After queen d1, knight d8 was played. And okay, now of course to guess the next move is of course also like a little bit too much Karpov style. Okay, now I mean like, okay, you have all the time in the world, but you're not perfect yet on the A file. So he went rook a3 with the idea of rook a2 and maybe queen a1 if he needs it. I mean, okay, probably like you have many ways here of playing the game, but this was Karpov. So king f8 and rook a2. Now, after rook a2, king g8 was played, he went for knight g4 because you cannot capture twice as there is the trick. King f8 and the knight went to e3. I mean, he had fun. King g8, and here actually he took on f7. It was time to execute the white squares. Now knight takes f7 was played and queen h5 happened in the game. Knight d8, and here in the final stage after queen g6, now you cannot capture on g6 because you give up the square on f5. King h8 and knight h5. Well, Unziger resigned. Because, okay, the thing is like that, well, he's lacking moves, and I think he had enough. The funny part is just that the game is still full of pieces.
I'm not gonna say how Aman Hambleton would describe this position because Lizzy is a lady, but yeah.
Yeah, but this is like, okay, I mean, for me this game was probably like one of the most astonishing games in terms of really like deep precisions which I saw from Karpov.
Yeah.
And the pattern with bishop a7, as I said,
is important to remember. Yeah.
It is really important to remember because, okay, this way you block the A file and you would release the A file the moment which needs to, when it needs to be done. I mean, even if you take here, I have always knight f5 to come. So, I mean, in any case, white is totally winning here. And I think for Unziger, it was one of his best defeats in his life.
He needed therapy after this.
I don't know. Okay, I mean, like, I think he died a couple of years ago. I mean, he was a German grandmaster. I used to play him some years back, and I used to play his nephew because he plays in the Bundesliga sometimes. But yes, that game basically, it was the game which I think Yusupov showed me in the early childhood of mine.
No, this is extremely instructive. Okay, but we started here.
Yes, we started here. I skipped the opening because, sure, okay, this is like the main line with knight c6. I mean, usually what they do is not to play knight c6. The main line with the knight on a5 here is either to play bishop d7 or to play bishop e6, provoking e5 and play bishop d7. Both these lines are okay. This kind of line with knight d8 is actually probably after this Karpov games against Spassky and Unziger. It wasn't chosen in the database anymore. Nobody played.
I'm not surprised. You see, the normal books on or courses on this, they warn you about pushing d5, but this makes perfect sense. Okay.
I mean, okay, the advantage for white is always after d5, basically he gets the space, but he has to be afraid of this g6 f5 patterns in general. This he has to be aware of. And of course, he should always try to prevent this c4 and knight c5 to come. This is like one of the most important objectives for white to play against this kind of Chigorin structure. That's why the move, the prophylactic move of b3 is a very important pattern. Just be ready to have after c4.
Yeah. No, I actually played this quite, and I understand the theory here, but this was this was obviously a completely different level.
Yes, I mean, this is the best, like the best advertisement to play Ruy Lopez for white and the worst advertisement to ever use the Chigorin line against it. But yes, I mean, this game shows pretty much the meaning of space advantage, the meaning of files, and the meaning of restricting your opponent's abilities. And
thank you. This was extremely instructive. So
I was sure you know this game actually, because okay, I mean, for me it was one of the most famous games I've seen of Karpov, or maybe my favorite game of Karpov, despite the one which I showed you with Knight B1.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You have a stream on.
Yes, I have a stream in half an hour, and I have to quickly eat also.
Okay, very good. And guys, I was asked by Lizzy to make my appearance on Lizzy's stream on Twitch, so I'm actually gonna make an exception of my no Twitch rule in respect for Lizzy and Anna Muzichuk. So please join us in half an hour. It will be on both your streams, right? Your co-stream.
Yes, we just make a huge giveaway to all the supporters of Twitch.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So I'll make an one-time exception, and I'm gonna see you guys there. Thank you for joining me for the stream. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. Believe it or not, YouTube actually cares about it. And I will see you guys in about half an hour.
About half an hour, maybe like 40 minutes, but at some point this way we start. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, Nicola.
Thank you, Lizzy. Bye. Bye, guys.